5th floor.
Room 502 at the Mizpah Hotel. The Lady in Red room, supposedly the hotbed of paranormal activity for the hotel. We booked this room for a 3-day surveillance run to try to see if that paranormal activity did in fact exist. We found a lot of activity in the hotel, some of it actually unwanted, but it was not the kind of activity that we anticipated. More on that later. I intended to place 3 wired cameras abreast with coverage overlapping, but the size of the room prevented that.
Well, room's not as big as I hoped for, that's for sure. Where we're going to set the equipment up at.
We ended up placing the surveillance DVR in the corner near the dresser, which is the only place it would fit. 2 cameras near that dresser and 1 camera near the bed. We also ran 3 infrared minicams, wireless minicams, which picked up no activity, which you will see no footage from. This old hotel has centralized air conditioning, which was not turned on at the time we were there, so we had to open one of the windows in order to provide air. This produced hordes of dust orbs. On a fixed lens infrared camera, dust orbs typically appear within 4 to 6 inches of the camera's length. They appear as smooth-flowing, non-oscillating, hollow or solid orbs, depending upon the mass, and can move no faster than the air that propels them, and luminesce no brighter than the light that is reflected off of them. Due to daylight saving time, 1 hour needs to be added to the DVR clock. At 5:42 a.m. daylight saving time, a fluctuating red anomaly was photographed. This anomaly was not a reflection from any of the other equipment, nor was it taillights from a passing car, as we are 5 stories up. It lasted only 6 seconds. A second camera angle shows that 1 minute prior to this I was returning to bed from a restroom break and was therefore awake when it happened. It was not the reflection from a cell sensor or any other equipment activating. Here is the footage again, slowed to half speed. In this short zoom and enhance clip, we see that the only other red light in the room is the DVR activation light, and it does not produce a reflection off of the LCD screen. Here is the clip zoomed and slowed to 25%. Was this a supposed lady in red trying to materialize into something larger? At 11:32 a.m., and that's a.m. as in just before noon, one of the cell sensors that was sitting on the dresser started activating and it woke us up. You can just barely see the light going off here as I accidentally set the ice bucket down, blocking its view. But you can see from this that the light that is being activated is basically a shade of gray, and it is not the same color red that reflected from the LCD monitor earlier. We asked around the employees at the hotel. Somebody came up with the name of Harriet for the lady in red. I don't know if that's accurate or not. We ran with it a couple of times.
Dad,
Harriet.
is that you, Harriet?
What time is it now?
11:29.
11:28 in the morning. Went all night long without an EMF detector going off. And it just went off on the nightstand right below the TV, pretty strong for about 30 seconds, and woke us up.
Upon exploring the hallways of the hotel, we found all of the hallways on the floors to be basically identical. The same type, era, reproductive furniture, although the motif and color varied a little bit from floor to floor. What you can't see in these photos is that these photos were taken very early in the morning when we went out and there was no one around. During the daytime and early evening hours, we found these hallways full of people. On the first morning, when the EMF activity awoke us, we came out of the room to find no less than 8 people milling around in the hallway outside of our door. It was standing room only in our hallway, as some people leaned against the walls, some sit on the floors, everybody taking pictures with their cell phones. I saw one guy had a K2 meter with him. All of them were trying to capture a picture of the lady in red. When I talked with these folks, it turned out that none of them were staying in the hotel. 2 cowboy dress guys said that they were doing core samples for one of the mines down there in the Goldfield area. One of them showed me pictures on his cell phone, a lot of which I thought was probably just light matrixing, but he didn't want to hear that. The second one had a picture of an apparition in his cell phone, which was actually quite unique. It had full facial features and even some color of red tinting to the clothing. But because he showed it to me on one of those iPhone things, and I know that they have apps for making ghost applications on the iPhones, I wanted to look at it further. I asked him to email it to me, and he said that he would, but of course that didn't happen. The first cowboy then told me that having pictures like this in their phones had turned out to be great chick magnets in the local bar scene. I guess that's why I didn't get the email. I mean, what guy would want to share his chick magnet with another guy? By the way, the food in the little cafe, the best. Easily rivaled anything we have here in Las Vegas. Just before midnight on the evening of the second night, we were up monitoring the equipment and we heard someone out in the hallway. Sounded like a group of men being boisterous and sounded like they were chanting, do it, or something like that. And then somebody either shook the door or rattled the doorknob to our room. I'm not certain which it was. We then heard what sounded like footsteps running down the stairs, and when I thought it was safe, I went and opened the door. Outside on the coffee table of the hallway, they had left a single red rose. I'm guessing that that was supposed to be for the lady in red and not for my wife, or heaven forbid for me. My point is that had we been normal guests and somebody had rattled our doorknob in the middle of the night and we'd opened it up and found a rose laying outside, we could have easily inferred this to be something else. This could be where some of the reports of paranormal activity come from. Immediately after I came back in, we heard this same group of men crossing the street back to the bar across from the Mizpah. I would think the management would want to take note of this and make an effort to try to protect their hotel from possible vandalism. On the last evening of our stay, we let some of the people that were out in the hallway using their cell phones to try to capture a picture of the lady in red actually walk into the room and look at the equipment that we had going. I am perplexed as to why adults bring children with them when they go about doing this, and there were quite a few people in the hallway that had children with them. When we asked people if they wanted to look inside of the room, some of the kids wouldn't even come into the room. So what happens if they actually see something? I think this could be a parent's worst nightmare. That is, basically sitting up many, many nights trying to read your kid to sleep after he saw something that he's basically been told doesn't exist to begin with. Upon awakening on the last morning of checkout, I noticed that the K2 meter on the dresser was spiking. These spikes appeared to be in some kind of measurable oscillation. There was about 8 seconds between each spike. My first guess was that this was some kind of a low battery indicator. The first thing I did was immediately change out the battery. The K2 requires a screwdriver to access the back panel, and here you can see me using the screwdriver in order to change that battery out. Installing a new battery in the unit made absolutely no difference. When the K2 was moved to a different location, the spiking stopped. I tried to get the K2 to spike from a different location. Tried sliding it along the dresser. I opened the dresser drawer and put it inside of the drawer. I checked along the floor. I checked along the ceiling, underneath the LCD TV, which had been turned off at that time, and got absolutely nothing. When the K2 was tested by using it to measure EMF on static areas, such as the DVR unit itself and the LCD monitor of the DVR, it performed within parameters. To complicate the puzzle more, when the cell sensor units or the Mel meter was placed in the exact area that the K2 was, they didn't pick up anything at all. I have read that the K2 is largely an unshielded unit. Whatever was being picked up was apparently for its eyes only. On this one, I was stumped. A few weeks after concluding the Mizpah, we found ourselves at the Hotel Imperial in Cripple Creek, Colorado. We picked up spikes on a cell sensor unit that was identical to this on the K2. And looking back at our past history, I can recall that we also got spikes on a cell sensor unit one time in a graveyard in Tombstone, which we also dismissed as equipment failure. I think there's something there. I'm not certain what it is, but it's something that needs more analysis.
That's her.
So in the end, how did the Mizpah stack up on a rating? Well, we certainly didn't find the activity that was alleged to be there. However, we did find enough activity to indicate that the hotel is not absent of activity either. We recorded 54.5 hours of continuous surveillance, and in those 54.5 hours we captured less than 1 complete minute of activity. That's excluding the K2 readings, which the jury is still out on that one. Based upon the conclusions of this investigation alone, we gave the Mizpah a rating of low, sporadic on the rating scale. We also believe that the activity in room 502 centers around where the dresser now stands. The red anomaly appeared here when the LCD screen was off, the first EMF reading which woke us up here, and the K2 reading later on when we were breaking down the room here. We know that these rooms have seen many renovations over the years. Certainly the plumbing for the bathrooms weren't installed until mid-century. It could be that where the dresser stands was where the bed used to be instead of on the other side of the room where it is now. Perhaps where the dresser now stands is where the lady in red turned her last trick or took her next to last breath. So would we come back? Yeah, absolutely. Tonopah is halfway between Las Vegas and Reno, and if you got a layup for the night, this is the hotel you want to be in. If nothing else, we'll be sure to stop here just for the food. I just wouldn't tote a lot of expensive equipment up to the room in order to test this place again. Better to stick with the cell phones. At least then you've got a chick magging for the local bars.